you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like, yeah, the Big Ten voted against playoff expansion originally, but it had nothing to do with expansion. It was just they wanted to delay it until they can get more bidders to increase the money that they could get for it. My biggest thing wasn't even the 16 teams, which I'm firmly against, but honestly, once you go to 8, 12, 16, what the hell does it matter? There's still only going to be 4 or 5 teams in any given year that can win it, no matter how big your playoff field is. But for me, it was Warren saying he softened his stance on automatic qualifiers. So we're going to have a 16-team playoff, which is 7 SEC teams, 4 Big Ten teams, and then 5 teams from other places. Cool. Because that's going to be super exciting every year.
Do you think Kevin Warren actually wanted automatic qualifiers, or do you think he just hung on to the automatic qualifiers as a way or as an excuse to vote no, when the real reason for voting no was we're going to sign with Fox. We want Fox to get a piece of this playoff, not just ESPN, since ESPN owns the SEC.
No,
I don't ever believe that Kevin Warren wanted automatic qualifiers. I think that was an easy excuse to vote no on this thing.
That's 100% what it was for the most part. But it's the same time, how could you argue out of one side that you're worried about your own conference and you're trying to do what's best for your conference and then say you don't want automatic qualifiers when we all know how that's going to end up?
It is best for the conference, though, right?
No, it's not. It's not going to be best for the Big Ten to have 7 SEC teams in the playoff every year. How is that good for the Big Ten? So they get the shit kicked out of them by the SEC every season?
Without automatic qualifiers, wouldn't the Big Ten get more teams as a percentage of the pie?
Yeah, but
I mean, Kevin Warren's goal is to make money for the Big Ten.
Were you not the same person who 10 minutes ago who said it was important for the Big Ten not to play second fiddle to the SEC? But so at least this way you're getting 4 teams in and they're all losing to SEC teams. Aren't you still second fiddle to the SEC?
You are. And look, on the field, you've been second fiddle to the SEC for a long, long time, right? Like the only team that has won a title in anybody, well, I guess Michigan shared a title, but
if you create a format,
money-wise, you're not second fiddle.
If you create a format which allows the SEC to get more teams in than everybody else, how the hell are you ever going to catch the SEC?
I don't think you're going to have materially more SEC teams than you will Big Ten teams. Maybe 1 a year, but I don't think you're going to have a scenario where you're getting 8 SEC and only 3 Big Ten.
If you
There's
win
a lot
9
more
games
bad Big Ten to beat up on and elevate your record.
If you win 9 games in the SEC, there's like a law, there's like an amendment of the Constitution that says you have to be ranked in the top 10.
All right, look.
Are you kidding me?
But 16 opens the door to Wisconsin.
Okay, so what do you think would be the normal split?
Like when we think about in the 14 model, in a 14 model, Wisconsin, Penn State, like there have been Big Ten teams and programs that have been knocking on the door just on the outside looking in that I do think in a 16-team model would be able to give the Big Ten a representation that, to Bud's point, is maybe not the exact number for number of the SEC, but is definitely going to be further ahead of most of the other conferences.
I don't think the SEC is going to have 7 teams in, but I do think that you're going to, in a 16-team field, you are frequently going to see 5 SEC teams in there. Frequently. So they're going to be making up about 1/3 of the field on average.
And honestly, that's probably not representative of how many SEC teams are truly among the top 16. Because normally I think it's probably about 8.
Yeah.
You know, like, but 5, to your point, if we have 5 SEC teams, have you seen any plans of what a 16 team would look like in terms of there's no auto bids, but you're going to want to avoid antitrust. So you're probably going to find some way to get some of these G5 teams with good records in there, right? How many non-SEC Big Ten teams are getting in on a 16 playoff annually? 7, 8?
Yeah. But if you break away from the NCAA and your playoff, you're just your own self-governing thing, and you are giving, you're paying players and you're doing all that, would you have to worry about antitrust laws if you're now suddenly a private entity? Whereas it's like the Big Ten question, and a quote unquote third league. And then it's just like, we'll just 8 SEC teams, 8 Big Ten teams, F everybody else.
I think that if you say this is an open playoff, this is an open championship available to all bowl eligible 131 FBS teams, no automatic qualifiers, just top 16 teams get in, then that's how you avoid, getting sued for collusion, because you're going to back model it and you're going to find all of these 11-1, 12-0 teams that have all finished in the top 16. You're going to be able to say at 16, we've been able to get in Coastal Carolina. We've been able to get in, UCF. We've been able to get in Cincinnati in the Peach Bowl year, not just the playoff year. Like you start to build this an argument that says we want to make this as big as possible. We want to make this as open as possible instead of getting hung up in the automatic qualifiers, when in reality, you know that all you're going to get is the bigger brands and the best programs, because the selection committee has already shown with the way that they've picked the playoff in the past that they are going to favor the teams that pass the eye test. The eye test has the best talent and oftentimes the bigger budget and the biggest brands.
One thing I like about, sorry, go ahead, Tom.
No, you go. I've been cutting you off all damn day, so you go.
I usually cut you off, so this is turnabout. I like it. So I do like the idea of 16 in that I think it will create more on-campus games. And just from talking to different guys, administrators and whatnot, one of the things they did not like about the original proposal was how many of these games were taking place at bowl sites. And they're like, look, man, we're already asking our fans to travel to Atlanta for the SEC title game, or Charlotte, or Indianapolis. Is it in Indy long term now? That's kind of the permanent home.
I don't know if it's like long term contractually agreed, but yeah, I think
they should play it in Soldier Field, though. In my opinion, that would be awesome.
Does it have a dome yet?
I mean, it's Soldier Field.
No, I'm saying that's why it's Big Ten.
When the Bears build their new stadium in Arlington Heights, I'm pretty sure that Chicago will then become a possible destination, but not now.
So I think you would have more home games, which would be interesting. I also wonder if they make it open, if they just make it very mathematical, which of course there's some downsides to that. We saw with the BCS at times, it could be kind of gamed. But if you made it more strength of schedule based, that's how you keep out the G5 teams that you don't want, because that's how, like, hey man, sorry, you have to play really hard strength of schedule if you want to get into the national playoff. You can't just game your way to 11-1 and expect to get in. And then your anti-competitive complaint is, well, hey, how do we do that if you guys won't play us? And like, oh, sorry, right? That's what the metric says.
Yeah.
More home games would be good.
I just think, like, if you're not going to have automatic qualifiers and kind of like what you're saying, I think there, the BCS or whatever, there needs to be a formula that is not human poll related in any way. It needs to be completely just metrics. You decide on what the metrics are, you weight things how you weight them, and you have to be completely open about how the process works, and you have it based on that kind of formula. Where conference wins, maybe you weigh them more, or you weight like non-conference conference, you can decide if there's a strength of schedule metric to that. But I think that conference wins need to be weighted equally. Like, I think a Big 12 win needs to be just as equal to an SEC win, even though like power ranking wise, not the case, but that'll never happen. We know that.
Yeah. I would like it not to be power rating based, even though power ratings ideally are going to give you the best teams. This is college football. I do think that a little bit of my older senses would say I'd like to reward the lack of losses.
I think the rankings should be merit based, not predictive.
I agree, merit based, but you can also do like strength of record, which is merit based, because you can game your way to a really good record, like just by not playing anybody. And there are teams that do that annually. And so part of this is, if you make it mostly based on, like your strength of record, which is heavily incorporated with schedule strength. And I would put a dominance factor in there, because I do think that's an important thing that we lost with the BCS when they took it out and the BCS results got worse. But that aside, you will have much better regular seasons, even though we're going to talk about, hey, the playoffs take away from the regular season. If you make this thing heavily dependent on strength of schedule and strength of record, you know that you will have to schedule up in order to make it in. So that is how we don't have the regular season be quite as devalued as I think it could be otherwise if we go to 16. Also, I think 16 creates buys, right? You would have to give the top 4 buys, and you have like 5, 12, and
no, 16 makes it. Yeah, 16 makes it an even bracket. Just line it up like the NCAA tournament regional.
You wouldn't want to give them buys?
12 gives you buys. 16.
Sorry, 12 gives you buys.
Yes, 16 is just the line them up.
You're playing 16, and then you're playing 8, 9, and so on.
How often is a 1v to 16 then? In this, I mean,
not often at all. It's going to be no different than the basketball.
Well, no, totally disagree.
Oh no, you're right. Because there could be a year where a 16 team is just a blue blood having a down season.
Well, and a 1 versus 16 in basketball is really a 1 versus 64.
Yeah,
this is like a 1v4.
It's more like a 1 versus like 268.
Yeah.
Oh really? Oh right, because the
351 teams in the sport, and you're like. Your predictive rating metric, your power rating of those 16 seeds are often outside of the top 200.
But I too like if we're gonna do like this metric though, like you said, they should include margin of victory. And if you're worried about teams running it up, just cap the margin of victory at a certain point,
Yeah.
whether it's like 20. I mean, that's what I do in my ratings. I cap it at 25 points.
You could do like at what point does the game enter statistical garbage time?
Yeah.
Which would reward you for blowing teams out early, not piling on late.
Mhm.
Ooh, I like that.